I should have never checked into that hotel. I should have kept driving, pushed through the exhaustion, found somewhere, anywhere else to stay. But the storm had turned the roads into slick death traps, and my eyes felt like they were lined with sandpaper. So when I spotted the towering old building wedged between sleek glass skyscrapers like it had been forgotten by time, I made the worst decision of my life. I pulled in. The neon sign above the entrance flickered like a dying heartbeat, buzzing erratically as if struggling to stay alive. Rosewood Hotel. The name didn't ring a bell, but I wasn't in the mood to be picky. I sprinted through the downpour and stepped inside, shaking water from my jacket. The moment I crossed the threshold, I felt it. The air was thick, heavy, like stepping into a room where someone had been arguing moments before. The lobby was dimly lit, the kind of place that might have once been grand, but had long since surrendered to decay. A dusty chandelier hung from the ceiling, its crystals coated in cobwebs. The floorboards creaked under my steps, and the scent of old wood and something faintly metallic lingered in the air. At the front desk sat a thin man, his sunken eyes barely acknowledging me as I approached. "You need a room?" His voice was quiet, almost drowned out by the distant hum of rain against the windows. I nodded, and he slid an old-fashioned key across the counter. His fingers lingered on it just a second too long before pulling away. "Room 306, he murmured, eyes flicking up to meet mine for the briefest moment. There was something uneasy in them. I hesitated. "Do you take card?" The man shook his head. "Cash only." Annoyed but too tired to argue, I pulled out a few bills, and he took them with a skeletal hand. No receipt, no confirmation. Just that key, gleaming under the dim lights. I took it, glancing at the old elevator in the corner. The doors looked like they had been forced open more than once, the metal frame slightly bent. A small plaque above the buttons read, "Do not use after midnight." The elevator groaned as it ascended, each floor passing with a dull thud that rattled the walls. When the doors slid open, I stepped into a dimly lit hallway. The wallpaper was peeling, and the air smelled of damp wood and something stale. Room numbers lined the hall in brass plates, their edges tarnished with age. My footsteps echoed unnaturally loud as I made my way to room 306. The door was already slightly ajar. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs. I was certain I hadn't opened it. I hadn't even been here before. Slowly, I nudged it open the rest of the way, my pulse hammering in my ears. The room inside was normal, almost too normal. A bed with stiff white sheets, a wooden dresser with a dusty mirror, a TV that buzzed faintly with static before flickering off. Everything in its place, yet something felt off, like walking into a dream where the details don't quite add up. I stepped inside, shaking off the unease. Maybe housekeeping had left the door unlocked. I set my bag down, tested the mattress. It sagged slightly in the middle, and checked the tiny bathroom. The sink dripped. The mirror was slightly warped, but otherwise, everything seemed in order. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was intruding, that this room had been empty for a long time, and I had disturbed something. The unease clawed at the back of my mind, but exhaustion overpowered it. After a long, hot shower, I collapsed onto the bed and let out a slow breath. I just needed sleep. The storm outside had softened to a steady drizzle, and for the first time that night I allowed myself to relax. I reached for the phone on the nightstand and called the front desk to order some food. The line rang and rang and rang. Then someone picked up, but they didn't say anything. "Hello?" I asked, sitting up. The silence on the other end was thick, oppressive. Then, finally, a voice. "Room 306. A pause. A long, dreadful pause. Yes, it'll be right up. Click. The line went dead. I stared at the receiver in my hand, a cold unease settling into my bones. Something about that call felt wrong. It wasn't just the pause, it was the way they said my room number. Like they were confirming something. Like they were making sure I was really here. I set the phone down and checked the time. 11:47 p.m. I hadn't realized how late it had gotten. My stomach grumbled, but the hunger was drowned out by the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. I tried to brush it off. Maybe the hotel just had bad service. Maybe I was overthinking it. But when I looked toward the door, my breath caught in my throat. The chain lock. I was certain I had latched it after I came in. I always did. But now, it dangled loosely against the doorframe, unlatched, open. A prickle of fear crawled up my spine. I stood up slowly, my pulse hammering in my ears. I crossed the room, gripping the lock between my fingers, testing it. It was ice cold, like metal left out in the winter air. My hands trembled as I relatched it, double-checking this time. Then, just to be sure, I twisted the deadbolt until it clicked. I stepped back, took a breath. It was fine. It had to be. A knock. Software, deliberate. Just once. My breath hitched. I turned my head toward the door, my body going rigid. Someone was there, but they didn't knock again. They just stood outside, waiting. The peephole. I had to check the peephole. My feet felt like lead as I moved toward it, my fingers gripping the doorknob for balance. Slowly, I pressed my eye against the glass. The hallway was empty. A cold chill washed over me. There was no one there. But I knew what I heard. I knew someone had knocked. My heart pounded against my ribs as I stepped away, trying to steady my breathing. Maybe the sound had come from another room. Maybe I was just... The phone rang. I nearly jumped out of my skin. The shrill tone shattered the silence, echoing through the small room. My hands shook as I reached for it, hesitating for just a second before lifting the receiver. I didn't say anything. Neither did they. The silence stretched between us like a rope pulled too tight. But this time, I could hear something. Breathing. Shallow. Uneven. Like someone struggling to contain excitement or laughter. I slammed the phone down. Enough. I wasn't staying here another second. I grabbed my bag, shoved my things inside, and yanked the door open. The hallway was even darker now, the dim lights flickering overhead. My footsteps echoed as I rushed toward the elevator, pressing the button frantically. The doors opened with a groan, and I stepped inside, jabbing at the L button. The ride down felt like an eternity. The air was thick, suffocating, and for the first time, I noticed something unsettling. The buttons. The floors listed. 101, 102, 103, 305. No 306. The elevator doors opened, and I nearly sprinted toward the front desk. The receptionist was there, but he wasn't the same man I had spoken to earlier. This one was younger, cleaner cut, and when he looked up at me, confusion crossed his face. "Can I help you?" I need to check out," I stammered, my voice cracking. "Room 306. His expression darkened. His fingers hesitated over the keyboard. "Sir," he said slowly, "we don't have a room 306. My stomach twisted. "What? No, that's not... There's a mistake. I just came from there." His jaw tightened. He turned the monitor toward me, and my blood ran cold. The screen showed a list of occupied rooms. 305, 307, number 306. I took a step back. My legs felt weak. My mind raced for an explanation. Had I hallucinated everything? Had I checked into a room that didn't exist? No, my bag was there. my clothes, my phone charger. I had been there. "You must be mistaken," I muttered. The receptionist said nothing. A movement caught my eye, a reflection in the polished marble counter, a shadow behind me. I spun around. No one was there. The lobby was empty. I turned back to the receptionist, my mouth dry. "I need to go back up there," I whispered. "I need to see it again." He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I'll come with you." We stepped into the elevator together. My heart pounded as we ascended. When the doors opened to the third floor, the hallway looked the same. But I felt it immediately. The wrongness, the stillness, the silence that hummed against my skin. We walked side by side, nothing in between. No door, no room 306. It was just gone. My breath came in short gasps. Number 1. I was just here. I slept here. I turned to the receptionist, my voice rising. I was inside that room. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. "Sir." He swallowed hard. This is the third time this month someone has said that. A sharp, crawling sensation ran up my spine. Then, from the empty space where room 306 should have been, a single knock. Software, deliberate. Once. The lights flickered, and the hallway went black. If you ever check into a hotel and something doesn't feel right, leave. Because sometimes the room you're in might not want to let you go.